Hi everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm Alma, and this week I participated in a Draw This in Your Style challenge on Instagram, also known as DTIYS. I wanted to share why I think these challenges are so worth trying. They are really fun, they are a great way to hone your illustration skills, and they help build community on social media. One perfect example of this is how Bridget, the creator of this super sweet illustration, said yes to my featuring her art here on my YouTube channel. She is someone that I follow because I really love her style. It's so sweet. In a moment, I'll explain how DTIYS challenges work, but first I want to say a huge thank you to Bridget for inspiring me to participate with her DTIYS, and I hope you'll follow her journey at lavender.log.designs. Now let's jump in and talk about how these drawing challenges work, and I'll take you through how I made my version of Bridget's illustration, including sharing how I use different brushes to add texture. Please be sure to give it a thumbs up if you enjoy it, and thank you so much for subscribing to my channel. Happy creating, everyone. You can search for drawing challenges on Instagram by typing in these hashtags in the search bar. I'd also like to note there are DTIYS groups on Facebook, and of course you can find them on TikTok as well. For this video, I'll focus on Instagram. What's great is drawing challenges are open to interpretation. You may use your own color palette or add your own creative flair. You just want your version to reflect the original illustrator's design. You don't need experience or a big following, and you can use any art supplies to create your version of the illustration. I've seen a digital art interpreted with watercolors, pencils, pens, and acrylic gouache paint. Illustrators will list their particular parameters, but most are standard. Make sure you include a photo of the original illustrator's work after yours on your Instagram post and tag them so they find you. Your art can then be included in their feed. Often there is a deadline, so check that first to make sure you have time to participate. So here I'm starting with a simple outline of my favorite character, and you can see here on the left with the quote I have just a small image of the general characteristics of this character that I like to create, but I'm going to make her hair shorter in keeping with Bridget's illustration. I imported a screenshot of Bridget's post, and I'm just now using the freehand tool to cut away the part that I don't need. So now I'm just going to tuck her image just right there in the corner, just so I have a guide. I really loved Bridget's palette, and so I'm going to show you how to select the color and just drop it into a blank square in your palette. You can always add a new palette by hitting the plus sign in the upper right hand corner, and then just touching each of the colors and then adding it to the palette. I'm also going to add just a couple colors that I am generally drawn to, so that it feels like it's my own. So I'm looking at the largest flowers first, and I will position those around my character in a similar way that Bridget has done. And I'm counting her petals and making sure that, there's just certain elements that I want to keep the same. I will make some of flowers a little bit more my style, but I want that general feeling, so I'm going to try to stay true to some of her flowers. At the moment, I'm still doing my sketch, so I'm either using, I like either the HB pencil or the 6B pencil under sketching. With the tall flowers, I am just doing amorphous shapes for the actual flowers and just a standard little leaf shape. I'm not following the reference exactly, but I do want to position it similarly. The tulips are in my own style. I've been making these forever. I want to encourage you to find little ways to bring your personality into your Draw This in Your Own Style challenge. Now I'm just following Bridget's lead with these circular shapes, and it looks like there are just these tiny little blossoms within those shapes, and I will handle those with color, and I'm not going to draw in all of the little circles. And here I'm just counting the petals. I don't know that I'll get it exactly with the little lavender flowers, but I do want to size them so that they're smaller than those cream colored flowers. Finish up the flowers and the leaves, and I'll add one little bee, and then I'll wait on the rest of the bees for when I'm adding color. For her hat, I will use the S tool and I'll select the ellipse tool to make a circle. I will fill this in with a solid color, and then later with the textures and the other colors, I'll create the lines and just give it a little more depth. For her hair, let me also mention that all of her parts are on their own layer. So right now I am showing you how I'm using the HB pencil. I really love it for texture. So what I did is I duplicated it, and then under properties, you can maximize the size of it. I like to keep it around 200. I like that thickness, and then it's just easier to color in larger shapes. And so for the parts that are a little more textured, like her hair, I'll be using the HB pencil, but for her skin, I'll be using the Studio pen, which is under inking. So I don't particularly care for that much texture on skin. I like the contrast between there being texture in some parts of the illustration and then more solid, flat colors in other parts. So here again is a Studio pen, and this is under inking. And I'm using the HB pencil, again that's for texture for the glasses and her blouse. Back to the Studio pen for the cream colored flowers, because I don't want any color to come through like it would with the HB pencil. So I just want those cream colors to be a nice solid, and I'll just use a little HB pencil to do the centers. For the rest of the flowers, I'm using the HB pencil, and then a little bit later I'm going to apply gradation to get some value differences, some contrast. I believe that the human eye sees contrast before it sees color, and I feel like having those gradations makes a really nice impact, and also it keeps the eye moving around, and I'll explain that a little bit more in just a moment. But I'm sampling from Bridget's illustration, just different colors. I feel like using a combination of dark, light, and medium values. So values just the amount of contrast in a color is a way to make the illustration interesting to me. For these circle flowers, I'm just again using a variety of different colors that I'm sampling, and what I'll do in just a moment is I'm going to use a solid color behind all of these little tiny circles so that they all kind of read the same, even though they're all just a little bit different because I'm using different colors for each of the circles. So you'll see here in just a moment, I will add a layer of color behind each of these circles. You can see me coloring it all in the background and then erasing the edges a little bit. I decided in order to have even more contrast, I decided to add this little bit of background with the dark green, and this is the Studio pen under inking, and what it does is just helps all the flowers pop, I think. So I'm still going to add more leaves, but I'm going to be choosing colors that are lighter than this dark green so that again there's more contrast. I really love Bridget's use of foliage with all of her flowers. I love that you see a lot of the greenery, so I'm adding even more leaves, and even though there isn't a lot of contrast between this green and her shirt, I'm going to be using again the gradation of texture in just a moment so that those leaves pop even more. So at first, you know, the coloring, it's okay if there isn't a ton of contrast because that can always be adjusted with texture. I'll move a little bit slower for the applying texture and gradations to the leaves. So I am applying first an alpha lock to the layer that these small leaves are on, and I'm using a darker color first to make the edges of those leaves pop a little bit more, and then conversely I will use a very light color green to add some light. I've applied an alpha lock to these longer leaves as well, and they are on their own layer, and I'm just adding some stripes, some darker ones, as you can see, and this just adds a little more movement to the flowers, I think. And I will just speed up now, and I will be applying this technique, you know, to all of the leaves and most of the flowers. Definitely to the tulips. I want those tulips to pop a little bit more, so I'll be applying a lighter and darker value to each, and all of the texture that I'm applying is just the HB pencil. I want to take a moment to encourage those of you, especially beginners, who are just beginning on your illustration journey. This is an incredible way to become a better illustrator, to learn different techniques. These draw this in your own style challenges are really a great way to get better and to also have fun and learn from other artists. And for her features, I'm just using the studio pen in very dark black, just to keep it really simple. For the bee trail, I added a layer of just a solid color, and then I added a new layer of the white darts that just go right over the drawn line. And why I'm showing you this one in particular is because I felt like I wanted to adjust the whole thing, but I didn't want to have to redo it. So what I did is you make a selection of the thing that you want to change, and here I'm moving obviously the bee and the hearts, but I'm also adjusting those little hearts, and I'm also using the warp tool just to change their curve just a little bit. I actually do this a lot with my drawings where I don't want to redraw the whole thing. You can just adjust it with the warp tool. I love to create more interesting little things inside my character's hair, and in this case I'm using the HB pencil, and when I do the rainbow I do apply an alpha lock to her hair, and that way it's just easier to draw a rainbow all the way to the edges. But here you can see that I'm adding a little bird, and this little bird I've been drawing for years, and I always love the idea that the little things that I put inside the hair are communicating with my character, like she's having her thoughts, but there are all these little characters inside of her mind that actually talk to her, and you'll see this a lot in my illustrations. I've applied an alpha lock to her hat, and here I'm just drawing in the lines and trying to follow the curve of what it would be like on a straw hat. I'm using the HB pencil to bring in some darker values just right along the edge of her hair, and now I'm bringing in a little more of that reddish color, and again I'm bringing the opacity down, and then I'm adding a little bit of lightness as well to the brim of her hat, in the same way that I did the leaves and flowers. Another way to create contrast is using the studio pen on top of the HB pencil. So those smooth curved lines of her hair, again I have a darker and then a lighter value, and that just adds more contrast. And you can create contrast not just with color but also with texture, obviously here. And I've also added just some little tendrils to her hair, and these are with the HB pencil. For her little cheeks, I just duplicated one side, and this is the HB pencil, and then I just remove the excess so that her cheek size are exactly the same. And then the final step is just to add texture to her blouse, and also this is the HB pencil, but for her skin I'm going to create a little bit of a shadow just under her hairline, and that is with the Studio pen, but the opacity is way down and just a nice smooth line around the edge of that hairline. And then I will do the same thing to her neck, and this is why I really recommend keeping all of your character's parts, including her neck, on different layers, because it's just easier to affect change to individual layers. And here you can see I'm just cleaning it up. Thank you again to Bridget for sharing her illustration with all of us. Thank you, viewers, for watching. I really appreciate your attention. Happy creating, everyone. Have a great week.